Hello and welcome back to my bookshelf tour. Let's continue up on kind of faves, I guess, or just my odds and sods thing. Start off with the collected poems of Dylan Thomas. Welsh poet, drank himself to death. Uh, Somebody who I have especially with this edition. It is my father's edition of the work. My father was an alcoholic. And yeah, it's got a certain resonance for me that's outside of the poetry. I do enjoy the poetry. I like that there's some parts of it that just seem unexplainable, whether they're unexplainable because of the poets. I don't know. But yeah. So it's got stuff in it for me. Next we have this is the collected poems of Roy K. Kiyuka, which I have shown you his individual editions down below. This is the one. This is my actual reading copy. It's all collected together, so I don't have to damage kind of treasured objects. I can actually also just treasure the poetry without having to worry about anything else. So yeah, it's got his poems. Doesn't have his letters, so that's the one thing. Kiyuka's reputation as an artist has long been recognized. Such is not the case with his writing and poetry, even though his engagement with language as a medium of artistic consciousness has been a preoccupation all along. For Kiyuka the poet, the poetic text is not a supplement to his visual art, but a medium that he explores in the same spirit and imagination as that of his other work. His poetry reflects his lifelong intellectual engagement with the aesthetics of experience and his artistry in transforming the elements of language into poetic texts, striking for their care with words, syntax, and the multiform spaces of the imagination, which is interesting because I, of course, have come through Kiyuka through David McFadden, a fellow poet who presented Kiyuka to me as a poet. I didn't know him as a visual artist and still haven't really caught up with his visual art, that other bit of him. Here's one I haven't actually read yet. It's Propertis, the poems. Translated with notes by W.G. Shepherd and introduction by Betty Radiance. Through his flamboyant and passionate poetry, Propertis' love affair with his mistress Cynthia has become one of the most celebrated liaisons in ancient literature, which sounds very Catullus to me. I guess I will actually, give it a shot and see what I think, just because it's sort of same kind of subject matter. Ooh, a little bookmark from City Lights, San Francisco's great bookstore. This is, I think it's because, yes, books are trees made immortal, which, I love the spirit, even though, hey, I'm perfectly happy with an e-reader and the tree staying up. Not that it's easy that way. Oh, one of my collections of poetry. This, I think I got through my poetry class at UVic, a creative writing class of poetry, and it's such a good collection of the vintage book of contemporary American poetry, with such people as Sylvia Plath, Robert Lowell, James Merrill, Louise Glick, W.S. Merton, Charles Simic, Allen Ginsberg, Frank O'Hara, Elizabeth Bishop, Anne Sexton, John Ashbery, Robert Creeley, Robert Haas, and Adrian Rich, amongst others. That I kept it because it seemed like a rather good collection. Next to it, the Holy Bible, the King James Version, which I probably have for more literary and cultural reasons, not religious reasons. It's literary and cultural reasons that I have this. It is one of the great texts, this translation of English literature, and a lot of the writers who came after this 16th century translation. You referred to this is what they lived in. So it's one of those things that behooves you as a reader to try and familiarize yourself with, even if you're not reading it with the same intent that those original other writers were reading it of. And I will stop with The Rattlebag, another collection of poetry. This one by two poets, Seamus Heaney and Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes and Seamus Heaney write, the verse we have chosen is meant to ... amplify notions of what poetry is. We have, for the example, included a number of poets from oral cultures, hunters' prayers, charms, incantations of various kinds, which fill an emotional space that literary verse tends to leave empty. We've used as much contemporary verse in translation because this often reaches its way towards awareness not commonly touched on by vernacular literature. And we have fetched material from America fairly deliberately, since this part of the English language inheritance is not as current here as it might be, which, speaking as a Canadian, it's very current here. But yes, the Rattlebag, a lovely collection of poetry I've got. We'll come along to another collection later, but I'm going to stop there because I've got work and all the other stuff that I usually have at this point of the day. But I wanted to get in my daily bookshelf tour because we're on a run.